Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Podcana episode 44. Organized play has been announced. We actually just got done watching the stream. Overall, very excited. I know we talked a lot on this podcast about cash pricing versus promo pricing, but ultimately, I think in the end, with a IP like Disney, this is a game that can probably support promo pricing. And that is what we got. But on top of that, we got a lot of great news, to be honest. There's a change in the competitive format, at least for these first few tournaments, which we are very excited about. And ultimately, it just looks really well structured. They did sort of stream with it, and they were all in a studio, very high production value. It's just cool to see that they're investing in organized play. Maybe not putting up $1 million, but they are investing in it. They are taking it seriously. And I mean, that really shows through the change in format as well, especially and we're going to talk about that. It's basically, there's like a 2-match format, but they explain the reasoning behind that specifically. And it's like, okay, they've thought about this and they understand the pitfalls of Lorcana. And this is like a fix to that, right? And that does allude to the die roll. I was really surprised. I'm going to get your thoughts. I was really surprised how transparent they were. I mean, they said a lot of words that we say on this podcast. I mean, the die roll is definitely non-zero in Lorcana, but they're also talking about competitive as a form of aspirational content, something for people to be able to aspire to. It's like the reason you do the day-to-day grind. It's like you have these tournaments to go test yourself. Let's just get y'all's first initial thoughts on the announcement, on the cast, everything. We'll start with you, Kawa.
Yeah, it was super exciting to hear all of this. Finally, it's what we've been waiting for. We knew the competitive announcement was coming sometime in March, and this was it. So to start things off, I do want to say that we did have the new set date announced, and it's important because the new set will come out before this official competitive stuff happens. So from the Inklands, we'll still have the Stitch, store showdown thing. But then from the middle of May is when these kind of competitive events will start. So that's going to kind of start from set 4. Before we kind of dive into all the information, I think overall I'm quite happy what they said. Like you said, Brendan, the new format structure, promos, I think I'm okay with overall too. There's one thing about the actual pricing that we will get to that I'm not too happy about. But they also mentioned that a lot of players initially weren't too happy with how many spaces for these events were actually allocated, but they did say they will adjust this depending on the demand. I don't know
what does that mean?
How accurate that's going to be, right? Like how they can actually follow that accurately. But as of now, they have said it's 512 players capped, so that'll be like 512 tickets per qualifiers, pretty much. But yeah, without going into the rest of it, Moyen, what are your initial thoughts?
I was really surprised by the new round format that they announced for the tournaments going forward. And initially, I really liked that format. There's maybe a few things I don't like about it, but in general, I'm really happy about it.
Yeah, which is pretty incredible because it feels like they have their finger on the pulse of current competitive Lorcana with that switch. I think there was a lot of upside in this announcement. So let's talk about the downside. Let's just talk about it. First one, top 8 playmat. Not great.
Foil playmat, which I've never heard of either before.
The thing, so I'm going to explain why playmats suck, just for all of you, so you guys know. Playmats are bad because they're not inherently collectible. Cards are collectible, right? Cards have a reasonable amount of integrity that can be checked, referenced, and you can hold them for value, right? They can't be easily faked and like, et cetera, et cetera. And they also, when you play with them, they don't get destroyed. Playmats do. They just inherently kind of do. Playmats are also usually, they don't have a lot of integrity, right? They can just get printed kind of anywhere. It's hard to, if it's an especially rare playmat, it's hard to know. It's like, oh, is this like the exact thickness of it? They're just not great collectible products. They're not sought after. So overall, you can't really sell them for amount of money, which is weird because we look at like top 62s, top 32 promos, top 16 promos. It's like, oh, these are all cool. And it's like top 8 playmat. It was just like, whew. So playmats are definitely a big L. I'm not saying don't put a playmat in top 8, but if that's your primary pricing, it's really bad for the player. Like they're just not inherently collectible and they don't tend to hold value.
Yeah, it would be much better if it was just on top of some promo card you also get a playmat, and then because then it's fine that the playmat's not super valuable because you just play with it and it's actually really nice to have. But we'd like to have something on top of that, I guess.
Mm-hmm. There was one more thing you mentioned, Kawa, just slipped my mind. What was the other There's some other weird thing that we were gonna mention. I'm trying to remember. Maybe that was it. Was it just the top 8 playmat?
I think it's just the top 8 playmat and then the capping of the tournament,
that's it.
right?
So, if you listen to this podcast, you know that One Piece is a game, you know that Bandai is a company, and you know that those tournaments are hard to get into. I'm not sure if Bandai goes out and says, hey, we'll dynamically adjust, due to demand, but I promise you the demand for these things is going to be absolutely freaking insane. And if it has 500 player cap, if you are not there the second it goes live, you will not get in. You will not get in. A lot of these venues, so the only venue I know about, they mentioned some locations. So particularly in Europe, they said Lille. I'm pretty sure I know the convention center in Lille. Like I've been there for a Flesh and Blood Pro Tour. I don't know how many players like over 500 that can actually take. It could probably take like 1,000. It's pretty big. The only downside of that location is there's no air conditioning. So if you are in a French summer in Lille and you are in that convention center, you will be cooking. Six tournaments, and Carl, you can remind me the name of these tournaments. Six of these tournaments are going to be in the United States, and then some of them out in Europe as well. What is the name of this tournament again? Like this type of tournament?
So this is called Disney Lorcana Challenge, right? Okay. So these are all going to be the all of these are going to be the qualifiers to get to Worlds, as far as I'm aware. Or if it's not the qualifiers to Worlds, I actually think that these are the qualifiers to then get to the European. Yeah, actually, it would make more sense, right? These are the qualifiers to get to the European Championship, then the NA Championship, and then through that's it, you qualified to Worlds. So it was specified that so far the first events within NA, the first one's going to be in Atlanta, Georgia on May 25th to May 26th, 2024. The next one that was announced was June 8th to 9th, 2024, Chicago, Illinois. And then they've also said that 4 more events are to be announced within NA. And I assume that's going to be well spread out, leading up to what I can imagine is going to be a holiday, qualifiers for Worlds, right? So probably around November, December, you'll probably have the North America qualifiers and stuff.
Yep. One other downside. The only reason we're talking about the downsides first is because there's so much upside. Top 8 to qualify. That's one we forgot about. It's top 8 to qualify at these tournaments. We talked about this on the previous podcast, why top 8 to qualify is not our favorite way of qualifying for events. We'd prefer something more circuit-based, accruing points, etc. It just kind of lowers the variance and incentivizes players that are willing to put in the work. Top 8 to qualify can be a bit swinging. That being said, if you are in something like America and you're even willing to travel to Europe, there's a lot of events to try to top 8. Like that's nice. It's not like, hey, top 8 this one event, and then you get to this other event, you top 8 that event, and then you get the Worlds. So it looks like there'll be a reasonable amount of opportunities to actually qualify. That being said, we said it before, top 8 to qualify is not a favorite form of qualification.
Yeah, but it's like a points-based system is hard to justify because you also want to give people a chance to qualify without attending all the events that they can, because a lot of players might just be able to attend a few or one, and these players also having a chance to qualify, I think, is still valuable. So I'm honestly not too sad about top 8 just qualifying.
What I would like to see in the future, which wouldn't be surprised if they already have planned, you can't implement it now for obvious reasons, is an ELO system. So ELO systems function off of K values. So you would have different sort of values that you can win and lose based off the level of event, so the tier of event. And that does incentivize like good, consistent players, and it also doesn't necessarily incentivize grinding events as well, because the higher your ELO is and the lower your opponent is, like the more you can lose, etc., etc. Usually takes, like in Flesh and Blood, they didn't have ELO at first. They implemented ELO qualifications about a year to 2 years into competitive. So they came out with ELO, like it was a thing, like you could accrue it at high level events, but they didn't actually make it a sort of way to qualify for events for about 1 to 2 years to allow it to settle and for players to sort of figure out where they would be on the leaderboard.
Another thing I want to mention there, and Brennan, you can kind of remind me because I've kind of forgotten exactly what they said about this, but they did mention something about being able to play kind of the chance to qualify for a major event kind of on the day before the event. So again, I'm assuming that's going to be for like the American Championships or the European Championships. Yep. Maybe like as a last minute qualification type of thing, possibly, because everyone can attend anyways, right? But only a certain amount of players can actually get in and play.
So I believe in Magic, they're called LCQs, like last chance qualifiers. Basically, so the main tournament would be on something like a Saturday. because it's going to be a 2-day event, Saturday, Sunday. Maybe if they have like a Pro Tour World Championships, it'll be 3-day, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But what happens is you can get there on the Friday, and there will be an LCQ, a last chance qualifier, and there will be a tournament where you can qualify for the Saturday tournament. So you can qualify for the day one of the major tournament. I love that. So the reason why I love that is not necessarily because that's a reliable way to qualify. The reason I love that system is it gives people a reason to show up on Friday. These conventions are open from Friday to Sunday. And what happens over time is like, usually they'll host like tournaments on Friday. It's like, they'll have limited going. They'll have these like open tournaments. But what happens is players realize like, those are incredibly low EV. There's like no reason to go. Maybe if there's a lot of hype in the beginning, people will show up on Friday. But ultimately, as like these tournaments, like as time moves on, there's been a lot of these, people kind of stop showing up on Friday because there's no reason to. But the last chance qualifiers give you a reason to show up and actually compete and make like this convention, which it essentially is, an actual 3-day event. So I love LCQs. I love the sort of day zero, last chance, go qualify, go compete. Gives you a reason to show up on Friday.
Sure. Sense.
Yeah. So I mean, that's most of like.
I think we should dive into talking about the format, right? This new format that was announced. I think as Moyen mentioned, he has a lot to say. Reasons why he likes it. Reasons why maybe it's not so great. But I do think overall, my understanding, we're pretty agreed that it seems to be a step in the right direction for sure.
I think it benefits us and people that play the game.
So the new format they announced is that we're going to play best of twos instead of best of threes.
Well, they don't want to call it's not best of
it's
twos.
Not really
it's
a best of two.
It's a 2-round format. Yeah.
Yes. So, and it's not like you can just win this 2-round format or lose it, but you gain a point for every win in these 2 games that you play, which I think initially is great because it just means that during the entire Swiss portion of the tournament, you will be playing going first as often as you will be playing going second, which eliminates which mostly eliminates the die roll issue, which they also mentioned. So it seems like they are quite on top of that and also listening to player feedback, and that made me very happy. But then also they said that if you win your round 2-0, that rewards an extra point, which I'm not sure why that would be a good idea. Basically, my first thought was, okay, let's say if me winning a round 2-0 and then going 0-2 gives me an extra point in comparison to going 1-1 twice, that just means that I'm a little bit more incentivized to play a polarizing deck where it doesn't have a very good matchup spread, but maybe there's some very good and some very bad matchups. And generally in TCGs, I would say those decks make for less fun and interesting games in comparison to the decks that have good matchup spread. So I'm not sure on why that really is part of the ruling. But other than that, I think the idea of the format is great, and it almost eliminates the need to eliminate the issue of the die roll. Not entirely, right? But it's much less of an issue going forward.
Yeah, I would love to hear if anybody has a better reasoning for why the additional points should be awarded to the 2-0. Let us know in the comments. But for me, the same thing. I think that if they didn't have that additional point, I would still be incentivized to go 2-0. Like, you are still incentivized to accrue as many points as possible in Swiss. Top 8, by the way. So top 8 of these tournaments will still be best of 3. I'm assuming, and I would be extremely surprised, I didn't hear them say it exactly, that your seed in Swiss will matter in terms of choosing to go first or second in top 8. So that matters as well. But yeah, the extra point is weird. Moyen said there's some metagame that goes behind that, might go behind it. Also incentivizes you to really take advantage of some of your early pairings, I think. Like, if you get because the early pairings of Swiss are pretty Wild West. Like, you could get the player that you tested with, or you could just get some random person that showed up and took a deck that their friend gave them and they don't know what they're doing. Like, you really get paid off for getting those pairings. So it kind of incentivizes, like, I don't know, stomping noobs in a sense. But ultimately, I don't like the extra point right now, but I could be convinced. I can't really foresee a situation where the extra point for going 2-0 is actually a benefit to the game so far. What do you think?
It also go ahead, Moyen.
Also, they announced like the tiebreakers, and I think they said the third tiebreaker was you're incentivized to win the last game of your round.
Mhm.
So that incentivizes you to go like second on the first game if you win the die roll, so that you can go first on the second game, just so you have like a slightly better tiebreaker. But as I said, it's the third tiebreaker, and that will rarely matter. But so it will now the interesting decision will be: does your deck need the surprise factor in game one to get the game going first over the line, or do you use that to go the game going second over the line, or do you use are you so confident you win in game one that you think you can go first game one to gather enough information to try to win game two going second? So now there's some interesting thoughts that come to mind with this new format.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I forgot, I couldn't remember if I heard them correctly, but I thought they said on like tiebreakers as well that it mattered how late you accrued some of those losses in the tournament. I don't know if I heard that or not.
I think no, I'm not too sure. I know that's something you mentioned is it happens in Flesh and Blood, I think, or similar.
Yeah, that's a Flesh and Blood tiebreaker.
But I know for sure it's what Moyen said. Definitely. I've completely forgot what I was going to say, so I will try and.
It's all good. Yeah, I think we're happy with the 2-round format. It just incentivizes better players.
I remember. Sorry, apologies. So I mean, I don't think this is the reason why they did it, because ultimately, I don't think this is a huge factor. But now that it's going to be a 2-round format, do you think that means? I mean, obviously, it means that rounds will be played out quicker, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like games and stuff will happen quicker. But do you think they will still stick to what I think is currently 50 minutes for best of 3, or do you think they'll roll back a timer? Like, do you think overall it's like, I mean, technically overall it is an advantage because you can just fit more games into a day. Events aren't going to run as late. Maybe some time for actual breaks, which, I mean, you've talked about this a lot, Brendan. That is actually quite important, getting sustenance and being able to make sure you can actually make it through the full day and stuff like that. Do you think, they're going to adjust the timings for that, or still keep at like the 50 minutes?
I hope they keep 50, because 50, it's not that 50 doesn't suit, 50 suits 2 games fine. It just doesn't suit 3 games. Like the whole 50-minute limit on Lorcana and something like Swiss was a massive pain to deal with in paper. Like going to time consistently the third game was just like a huge flaw of the game design, in my opinion. So I think this is just more congruent with like how long Lorcana games tend to take. They take a long time. So I hope they stay at 50 minutes. That being said, it would not be unreasonable for them to cut down in some
because if this was their time for best of 3 and they were happy with that time, then maybe they also cut it down.
Maybe
my theory is they just got it wrong.
What's the worst thing in European One Piece events? The timer for so the Swiss portion is best of 1, and then Top Cut is best of 3, and those rounds have the same timer.
So I've never encountered a TCG where top eight rounds are timed. They're always untimed.
Oh. I think at some point they're no longer timed, but first few, I think maybe even only the finals or something were untimed, but most rounds are still timed in Top Cut.
All of the Lorcana events I played so far, and again, these are all obviously third-party events, like nothing official. The top 8 has been untimed, which I do like, because I feel like there's less pressure. I can just focus on my game and play it out.
The event in Utrecht, the extra prize I would have gotten was like 35,000, then I lost to time. The One Piece event.
35,000. Yeah, I hope those numbers we're working with those numbers in Lorcana as well. Overall, really good announcement. I would have liked to see cash, because I would like to see people like dethrone Fab as like they just put up cash for their Pro Tour. But Lorcana, the Disney IP is strong. Is it stronger than One Piece's IP? Probably. I mean, I don't know. Maybe One Piece just like has better collectible cards as well, but we'll see. Hopefully we get up to those numbers and it can make organized play worth it. I'm excited for the circuit. I want to play most of the American ones. I'm sure you guys will be out at the European ones. It's just an exciting time. Like even if you've never competed in a TCG before, this is the best time to compete. It's just the most fun. Like everything is wild. Anybody can really win. Like this is the time to get out there and play. So that's definitely what I'll be doing. And I'm happy.
We just need to win the mini game of getting into the events.
Yeah, the mini game of Gaia. Can we actually talk about this a little bit more, Brendan? Talking about the events being
It's no joke. Like this is actually my 100% biggest concern for not winning these tournaments. And I mean winning, like actually winning. My biggest concern is getting in. Like I think it's going to be a huge problem.
Yeah. So in One Piece right now we have like 1K events, 1K player. and in the next 3 major events, I managed to get into one of them. It's really difficult.
Is that literally just buying a ticket type of thing, or is that through qualification and points and stuff?
No, it's just buying a ticket.
That's so crazy.
But this weekend there's a tournament in Germany that I'm not attending, just to attend a tournament in the UK a week later, because at least there I got a ticket. And then also I'll be playing a tournament in France 1 week before the event in Lille, so maybe I can like stay there for a weekend.
Nice.
Yeah, it's no joke. Like, I hope, honestly, like, we would get a massive advantage by not warning you guys about this, but I'm gonna warn you anyway. I promise that you underestimate. I promise if you don't play One Piece that you're underestimating how fast these tickets will go. Like, it is to an extent that if you're a human being and you're not using a third party assistance, like some sort of bot or something to literally turbo through the code of the page and actually get you to check out super fast, you might not get a ticket. Like, that's what we did at we've done that some of the early Flesh and Blood stuff. There's some tricks you can do with like HTML code to basically like insta checkout. If you know the places on the page where the button will go live, and like, it's hard. It's hard to get into, and like One Piece is a perfect current example.
And then if the tournament organizer chooses to use a third-party website that might crash when everyone's loading it, then the second you might be able to load it, all tickets might be gone already. That also happens from time to time.
Yeah, so that's part of it as well, is that so human beings will be spamming the website, right? They'll be refreshing, they'll be clicking the button, but then there's going to be other people that are using bots to do that as well. And it's like I wish I could explain it, articulate how easy it is to make a bot that can just like turbo check out. Like, it is not hard at all on a custom website. It takes like 5-10 minutes if you know what you're doing. It's an absolute joke. And you can just like turbo refresh the button and check out. So it's tough to get into. I'm not saying that you have to do any of these like this next level stuff of like, checking out. But if you think like, hey, I'm gonna get off work a couple hours later, maybe don't do that. Do not do that. You will not get a ticket. Most likely.
You need to take a toilet break at work and then get your ticket.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's the announcement. Oh, let's talk about the new set, actually. I forgot so much competitive. I forgot they announced the new set.
Yeah. So I'll talk about the new set really briefly, because I do want to get into the main topic and, continue to speak about why mine is still currently rank 1 on Pixelborn, because that's pretty impressive, not gonna lie.
Yep.
So the new set 4, it is Ursula's Return. Some of the key Disney IPs or movies or whatever that are kind of coming. I know a big one is Encanto. I know a lot of people love that. People in the comments can roast me. I still haven't watched that, but I've heard it's good. And with this set, I don't think we've seen any new mechanics so far. I'm gonna take the Brendan approach right here and say some of the cards we've seen revealed so far aren't incredibly impressive, but there is one that I guess we can talk about. Right, we can talk about one card right now. Why not? And it's this Ursula legendary card. So it's a 7-cost inkable amethyst card, Ursula Sea Witch, 4 attack, 7 health, Floodborn Villain Queen Sorcerer, quest for 3 with shift 5, has the ability, now I am the ruler. Whenever this character quests, exert chosen character, and then also has the ability, you'll listen to me, other characters can't exert to sing songs. I think that effect is quite powerful, but even when you quest, you get to exert something else. Very reminiscent of the 7-cost Ursula that we know and love. Big distinction is it's inkable. I think that is actually really important, is that the card is inkable compared to the other
as well.
4/7, big stats. What do you guys think? And I know this is really hard, right? Because this is like super, super early initial impressions of the card. But what do you think?
So I guess Ursula always has a big butt. The same with the 7 willpower.
Yeah.
So I guess if this comes down on 7, it's still a little slow, even if it has a big butt, because it doesn't do anything on play. But shifting this out, this looks like a menace, stopping characters from singing songs. But then also questing for 3, not just with 7 willpower, but even the 4 strength is important. This is much harder to trade into than the 2/8 Ursula we know and love.
Can't be killed, can't be bounced by Kit, can't be killed by Madame Medusa. These are cards that I have in my head so much now because they like. I mean, when you talked about it in like Blue Steel, right? It's reasons why we can't really afford to play cards like Belle. It's the reason why cards like Beast and Robin Hood get countered so well by Madame Medusa, and these are things that people are really gonna have to consider. Like, it's not like a main thing to focus on a card, but as meta starts to develop and stuff, it's like, well, if this card just has 3 attack, it's actually a lot worse than if it had 4 attack because of cards like Madame Medusa and stuff. So that is definitely important. Brendan, what do you think?
And it's still not just World's Greatest coming in mind.
It does. It does, yeah.
Well, did we get Moyen's final opinion? Good card or bad card?
Probably bad card.
Okay.
I didn't want to say it.
I think I actually like it, but so I don't know. I just think this. So like the shift ability is really good. I like it being inkable. Like playing things on turn 7 nowadays just feels like it's a lot. Like it's a big ass. The game is just like really fast. I think having the ability to shift now, not that you'll be shifting every time, is really powerful. I think the effect is powerful. Is probably going to get more powerful as well. Characters not being able to exert to sing songs, like it is not zero, especially in the context of the other Ursulas that exist. But I'm sure we'll get more characters that are like that get payoffs for singing songs. Questing for 3 is a lot and a big 7, but also this. It's just such a good control card. Like I love that this card quests and then exerts chosen character. Like it's just doing what it wants to do. This card wants to quest for 3, and then it's also clearing, like potentially setting up your opponent's board to get cleared. And there's so many like annoying little threats. Like we play 2-cost Pinocchio. I know that's to deal with some early threats, but like there's so many annoying things in this game right now that don't exert, and this just inherently exerts them. And also just like it's hard to trade, right? Like Maui doesn't clean trade this. I like this. Honestly, I really like this card. And I would absolutely be looking to brew with it if it came out today.
Oh, also, don't know if we've mentioned that also your other characters also can sing songs.
Mm-hmm.
So you can like sing friends with some 3-costs after playing this.
It is but just also, other characters, right?
Yeah. But at the same time, I think with the cards that we have in current sets, the color combination with Emerald jumps to mind because the 2-cost Ursula is a great card, but the body is so terrible. That's like the shift target or the character you want to shift onto a character that did something extremely good on play, but is after that kind of useless, and that like could also play more for some more shift consistency. So
yeah, and I think with that Ursula as well, Moin, you can correct me if I'm wrong because I haven't played too much of the Emerald Amethyst deck, but it's not always correct to my understanding to just jam the Ursula onto you to get rid of the song. Maybe it is if it's just your turn 2 option, but like holding it a little bit later to try and get a song out then is kind of pretty good. And then obviously, like, say if you play it on turn 4, it survives, you just shift this on 5, it's pretty good, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that totally makes sense. That deck often wants to play Bucky or more for something with more tempo on 2 and then fit in the Ursula later where you really want to get rid of the song. So that because you wouldn't, that's also the thing. If you play something very early, you usually don't want to hold it until turn 5 just so you can shift. But Ursula isn't necessarily 2-drop anyways that you always want to play on 2. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense to just play Ursula on 4, Ursula on 5.
Looks sick. Did we mention when the expansion was coming out? May 17th? I think
May 17th, yeah. I don't know if I did or not. But yes, May 17th to hobby stores and LGSs, and I think May 31st for wide releases.
Yeah. I think...
One day before my birthday.
Nice. There was this like, so Magic the Gathering started like really increasing the amount of products it was pumping out, pumped out a lot of derivative products as well. And people had like product fatigue and they complained about it a lot. It's still a thing for sure, but I think when choosing between the two options of frequent releases and the possibility of product fatigue versus the opposite of that, which is not enough content, not enough product, I would choose more products every single time. Like one of my favorite things about Lorcana is like, it's a TCG, which is notoriously bad for content, like, you know, frequent content. But in Lorcana, it's like, I feel like we're either trying to figure out the meta and we're like hardcore grinding for like 2 to 3, maybe even 4 weeks after the set comes out. And then as soon as it starts to get a little bit stale, which it's not even at that point right now, it's just like, boom, spoilers. It's just so great. Like we're always running.
Yeah, and it has taken a lot of time before it even got close to being stale in set 2 and set 3 because the meta just kept evolving even when we thought we knew everything there's to know. And then it's just some new evolution to the meta that happens again.
Yeah. There is something I want to mention, and I'm sure people in comments, please correct me if I'm wrong. But so the equivalent of the gift set that's coming out for set 4 is basically like a kind of co-op little mini expansion that they're bringing out. So this is very Disney-esque, is all I'll say, is that, oh, you don't have to play against players, you can play with players and have fun and kind of beat a boss, and that's the whole idea of like you try and
that's pretty innovative actually. That's like really uncommon. I'm not saying it'll be fun, but PvE like so dude. So yeah, I get memed on some other podcasts for talking about Flesh and Blood too much, including this one. But Flesh and Blood has been talking about doing PvE for like years. Like this is like they're like this is our big thing, and it's hard to design. Like they've been delaying it for super long, and it's something that people really want. So this actually this does not appeal to me, and I would be surprised if it appealed to you guys. But this is like huge, like PvE content, being able to face against like a pseudo AI or like a boss, or that's like a big deal. So I'm actually I didn't notice that in the box. That's pretty impressive. And I think that's really big for the game actually.
Well, actually, as I'm reading through this, it does seem like there's actually a lot of stuff that you get in as well. So compared to like the previous gift sets, I'm not gonna lie. Like besides the Disney 100 one, like they're pretty like meh, right? Like people just get them and probably put them in the closet and wait until they try and retain some value, right?
Or just shoot the packs out of them or something.
Yeah, but for this now, this product is separate from the new product that they're going to be releasing, which is basically the 2 starter decks within one pack. They did show that off. I think they teased that at one of their toy fairs or whatever, where they show off product before. But this is actually, this is essentially PvE. So it comes with, it says 2 pre-built decks, and you can have the option to go up to 4 players for this, which I think is pretty impressive. It's quite interesting. But the reason why I actually really wanted to mention this, and again, this is the thing that I want people to correct me if I'm wrong, is from what I heard them say, is it seems like you can only get certain cards through this.
Yeah.
So they're doing the class. I mean, yeah. I've recently jumped into Star Wars Unlimited, and I've been told that how they're doing it in that game is how a lot of other games do it, most notably I think Magic. So some decks that are found, or some cards that are found within the starter decks, you can only get them from literally buying the starter decks. You cannot open them in packs. Whereas in Lorcana previously, you can open all the starter cards, technically,
even the promo cards, even the championship cards.
Yeah, even the stitches apparently. So
yeah.
But that being said, like I just want to say I want people to clarify. I'm sure we'll be able to clarify it too, because this could be a situation of, oh, within this kind of gift set, it's just a alternate version, like art of the card, right? You can maybe still get the cards within the packs, but they could literally be, you can only get these cards through buying this.
Super standard. So definitely a turd move, like not the best. Like they're not doing it for your benefit. They're definitely doing it to extract money out of your pocket when you don't actually want to buy the product. That being said, absolutely industry standard. I don't know a single TCG that doesn't do it. Even Flesh and Blood does it, and they pretend like, hey, it's good for you. And it's like, no, it's not. It's fine. Like ultimately, you're just going to be able to buy them as singles. They'll probably be a little bit more premium than any any comparable uncommon or common or even rare. But it won't impact you. I can pretty much promise that. It is definitely a capitalist move to get your money, if that's the case. Like you said, you're not even clarifying it. It is absolutely a move to get your money and sell products to people that don't necessarily want to buy that product. That being said, industry standard, it's fine. And I have not seen it impact any game that I played like super negatively. Maybe in the long run, like these things go out of print and it's like a super staple and they're hard to get now.
I heard in One Piece that's actually a thing, apparently there's one or two, I don't know if it's in the current meta, but there's 1 or 2 like starter cards within like some of the starter decks back in very much previous sets that are in a lot of meta decks nowadays.
And the starter decks are like out of print, and then the cards out of the starter decks actually, some of them have become really expensive.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's probably a worst case scenario, I would imagine, right? But yeah.
Yeah. So some of those cards were like, those decks were originally, I think, less than $20, and now people are reselling them for like more than 50. So like the ones where there is cards that you really, really want.
Yep. I would say I would prefer it to not be like that, but again, it's not. I think that a lot of people will see that and they'll be like, "Oh my God, this is so bad." But it's pretty
standard, right?
It's super standard. The only thing that kind of pissed me off with Flesh and Blood is they like pretend like there's nothing that makes me more angry not more angry, but it really you lose me when a company takes the moral high ground when they're clearly taking the moral low ground. Which is like if they just came out and they said like, yeah, we just want people to buy this product, but Flesh and Blood decided to push it like, oh, it's just this you get to buy the product as well, and there might be a good card in there. When they printed a clearly fucking broken card in the set that everybody needs, it's like it's pretty frustrating. But I would have been okay with it if they were just more upfront and just like I don't know more clear about it. Like it just felt scummy when they just kind of obfuscated it and pretended like they weren't doing it. When Flesh and Blood is a very quantitatively balanced game, and the card was literally just pushed by a number, and it's just like, all right, bro. Okay, I guess I'll buy the card. Anyway, let's talk about the metagame because Moin is still rank 1, and you're rank 1 by a margin at this point. I know Savige has maybe this is the greatest rivalry in Lorcana, and Moin and Savige are friends. But Moin and Savige have been going back and forth on rank 1 for a while. I saw Savige went back to Hearthstone. Maybe he's got to play the new set a little bit. I was super... we had him on the podcast, so I just got to point this out. The new set for Hearthstone came out, and Savige was playing Lorcana off stream and grinding the leaderboard, which is hilarious.
Yeah,
he's loving the game.
Yeah, also, at the start, I just played to rank 1. I was fine with it, but then I realized, I still want to play the game, and also might be nice to get a little bit of elites on rank 2. So I played until I was like 6 best of 3s ahead of rank 2, which was Savage. And then I was like, surely this is enough. New Hearthstone expansion comes out, and he shouldn't be playing Lorcana, especially not off stream. And then a few days later, again he takes it. But now I'm again like 7 best of 3s ahead, and I think that should hold for a while. But at the same time, I kind of want to just play on rank 1.
Just cement, yeah. I didn't honestly. I knew that Savige was really good. We've all been aware of him as a Hearthstone content creator. I didn't know he was like an actual kind of god gamer, because he came on the podcast and I swear to God, and maybe he didn't want me to publicize this, but he came on, he was like, guys, I'm happy to talk about the game. I just don't know a lot about the meta. I just haven't been playing competitively that much. And like, he just like really undersold himself. And then the new set comes out and he's just like turbo rank 1. And I was like, okay.
It was so humble about, I just do this for fun, which, he is still doing this for fun, right? But he's still very, very good at it. So what I want to talk about is really Ember Steel, because it's what Savage used to get the rank 1 back for me momentarily after they saw, I think at CC the 8K CCS was won by it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was.
So he just took that list, changed the card, and used that to get the rank 1 back. And I've tested some blue purple after there was initial hype in the Thea tournament around that, taking one of the top 16 slots again, but I wasn't too impressed by it. But this new version of Ember Steel is what I've played now, also to get the lead on rank 1, and I'm really, really impressed by it. It's not even doing too much new things. It's just forcing a specific game plan a lot more heavily, which is just getting the tempo early with Cinderella song, but also with the 2 shift options. So it's back to 8 Robin Hoods and 8 Queens to shift early. But then it cuts so much of the late game that the deck always used to play, the mid to late game. So it plays 0 Sad Beasts, 0 of the 6 cost Tinkerbell, and instead just plays all the songs that can remove stuff. And once you fall behind against this deck, and this deck can run out of cards if you don't find Whole New World. But if this deck Whole New Worlds you, they can play the cards they got from the Whole New World over the next few turns so quickly, because suddenly they use all of their characters on board to sing songs, and they play a few new 2/2 Queens and 2/2 Robin Hoods. Next turn they shift again and sing more songs, because they play like 4 Zeus, 4 Strength of a Raging Fire initially, and then 4 Let the Storm Rage On. Your stuff just doesn't stick once you fall behind against this deck. And then, of course, it is also protected against stuff like Be Prepared, because it's playing 4 Flutes. This is the first time that I'm like really, really happy, and I think Ember Steel is in a great spot, this particular version of it, because I always liked Flutes, but I still didn't really like Ember Steel enough to be wanting to play it in competitive tournaments or on the ladder. But I think this particular version is using all these tools to their maximum potential and getting the best out of it, and is actually, like, for me, it's tier 1 also.
Mm-hmm. What by what order of magnitude tier 1? Do you think it's like, is it better than Ruby Amethyst at this point? Is it debatable? Is it matchup dependent? Like, how does it really shake out when it's like, what is the current best deck in the format?
For me, I'm not at the point where I would be able to tell like the difference between these. I would just say that they're both tier 1. And also, if I remember correctly, because the meta evolves very quickly, last week on the pod we still went too high on Ruby Sapphire, and since then Ruby Sapphire has also had a lot of success and gained a lot more respect, because people figured out that the Ruby Amethyst matchup is actually not bad once you put 2 dimes in, which is the default amount now. And it might actually just be favored for Ruby Sapphire, which still doesn't eliminate the inherent weakness to aggressive decks. But aggressive decks are much less common than Ruby Amethyst. So Ruby Sapphire also has its foot back in the meta. And with Ruby Sapphire having the foot back in the meta, you might think maybe Sapphire Steel is getting pushed out now, but Sky managed to win another of the tournaments with Sapphire Steel last week.
Yeah. It's a wild meta, for sure, because it is just so in flux, and like now is we might see room for more aggressive strategies to come in. The contingency around Ruby Sapphire always was, it was like, this deck is so good into all these wheel decks, but it's like it just gets absolutely bodied by Ruby Amethyst, and you just had to solve that problem. And I feel like since then, like since we had that combo, and people were having that combo before us, like the deck has just gone through like thousands of iterations, just being grinded on Pixelboard, and it has finally come to a list where it's like it beats Ruby Amethyst, or at least it has a decent matchup into Ruby Amethyst, and because of that, it's just like such a good deck now.
So also, I do have some questions, Moyen, about the deck, because as always, there's multiple different versions of this deck that I do see kind of floating around. So I want to get your opinion on a few cards, some inclusions that some players have, or some cards people have included in the list, and some cards people don't have. A card that I see a lot of people actually not including in this list, which I think is criminal, honestly, is Mr. Smee. Like, if he's just such an incredible 2-drop. I know in this list you have 2. I see a lot of people who have chosen to cut him completely. A lot of people on the one Rapunzel train, not going for the 4 Rapunzel. I think now that you don't play Sad Beasts, which used to be for card draw, right? You don't play what was kind of like your other, like there were other kind of card draw tools, right? Like Rapunzel being there, I think is like super useful. Oh yeah, like Rockstar Stitch, like big Surfer Stitch as well, right? These are all kind of late game types of things where you can kind of draw more cards. So I do think having the Rapunzels in there is quite nice. I saw a few versions of this list running the 4-cost Unlinkable Hades.
Yeah. And
I do want your opinion on that, because I feel like that's for like the slower matchups, but overall I feel like, for me at least, and I haven't played the deck obviously near as much as most of these players, but I feel like it's kind of like nearly too slow of an inclusion to have on the list when your deck wants to just be doing naturally fast things. What's your thought on that card?
Yeah, so the initial list that won the tournament was playing 3 of the Unlinkable Hades. And the reasoning that I've heard from him and also from Savage was basically that the deck is so all in on Real that if it doesn't hit Real, can struggle really badly. And then it is nice to have this secondary game plan of, I can loop my Hades, or I can also just at some point take an Ariel again to keep digging for the Real that you so desperately need. But I don't think it's worth it to include, because I think Unlinkable Hades is so subpar in terms of card quality that I'd rather not have the secondary game plan and accept losing sometimes to running out of stuff. So and also it was only playing the initialist was playing 1 Rapunzel, and the one card change Savage made was cutting 1 of the Hades for 2nd Rapunzel. I think that's what it was. And the way I've spent the deck is just cutting all the Unlinkable Hades and now playing a few Smees to fill out the curve a little nicer, because a lot of the time you're going if you do, so either you go queen on 1 into queen on 2, or you go like Robin Hood on 1 and you want something on 2, but you don't really want to spam more 2/2s that don't really matter unless you can real early.
Yeah,
and then
you
Robin
do
Hood on
Flute
3.
or something. Yeah.
Yeah, so usually you do Flute. But what's also really nice is the Smee on 2. Not only because it fills out this curve, but also that it's very... So you don't always use them, but it's very easy to recognize when there's this upside of maybe I can Smee on 2, take a trade or quest on 3, and then have this Rapunzel on 4, because Rapunzel can often be not drawing any cards at that point, and I think Smee can help you manipulate board states into much better Rapunzel board states, which is why I just also went to increase the count of Rapunzel in the deck.
I think having early game cards that quest for a lot as well when you want to get there. I mean, if your game plan is kind of revolving around flutes and you still need a little bit of extra help, I think comparatively a card like Smee is probably better if you want to get there faster than a card like Uninkable Hades, right? Like if you're really trying to race to get there, I think it's a nice inclusion. I love to see Benja in this list as well, for not only for the mirror match of this, honestly, but like for all of the other decks you guys mentioned, right? For the Ruby Amethyst matchup, it hits books. For the Ruby Sapphire matchup, it hits dimes, which is a really, really nice hit for sure. Benja's always been a solid card. Again, just another card that quests for 2. Yeah, I'm really impressed with this list. I will actually be taking this list to a tournament this weekend, which I'm excited about. It's a bit of a weird formatted tournament, but I do think it's going to be an enjoyable one for sure. And similarly to set 2, I actually started off playing tournaments with Amber Steel, then I moved to the more kind of aggressive package. So it'd be nice to... I think what I love about this, what I love about Lorcana so far, honestly, is, and they actually kind of mentioned it on the live stream today, is there's a lot of players that gravitate towards certain types of decks. Like Amber Steel since start 1 has been a very popular deck, but it's like you guys were saying, like I feel like literally week to week there's constant iterations, constantly trying to improve upon the deck. The metagame is constantly in flux, as Brendan would say. So yeah, I just love to see it, and I'm happy to see that these ink color combinations aren't kind of just getting absolutely lost, and they're being revived with the additions of new cards and kind of new strategies and stuff like that.
Yeah. I had this local player to me that I got into Lorcana that I do these, like, I run with, basically. Like physically run, not like no, he's like a part of my crew and we run together. But yeah, he like got into Lorcana and he was like, dude, what the hell? The fucking meta changes every single week. How am I supposed to order cards? It's like, dude, the pixel board meta changes every week. Your local meta, you will be fine. Like
Pixel board meta changes like almost every day.
Yeah, every day. This is the best part about Lorcana. And yeah, I don't know how they keep doing it. I don't know how they maintain it. Like, there's just been nothing that has been incredibly broken enough to not be disrupted by other strategies that try to adapt to it. So it's a testament to design and development. For
the Ember Steel deck as well, I assume that it makes the deck a lot more budget friendly, because suddenly you don't have to buy 4 copies of Sad Beast.
Yes.
Because
I will say those Sad Beasts, the price of those Sad Beasts is definitely replaced by Robin Hood. I currently am going to have to run this deck without my 4th copy of Robin Hood, because it's on the way, but it's pricey.
Yeah,
it's roughly like a $40 card right now. So
I bought these. I sniped Cinderellas like really cheap, because I was like, this card's too good.
Apparently, Lucky Dime has also suddenly gotten value while it was extremely cheap before.
My foil Lucky Dimes will be sold. Let's go.
All right, we're pretty deep into time, so let's head into this building section. This is our listener question section. If you want to get your question read out in next week's podcast, you can shoot us a comment on YouTube. Kawa's reading comprehension or reading dictation is better than mine, so I'll pass it over.
Cool. All right, first comment is, looking forward to seeing the Ruby Sapphire deck tech. I'm currently putting a deck together, so your insight would be great. Would love to see you guys give a take on Emerald Amethyst. I already have this deck built, but would love to know if you have any tweaks to target the current meta. Before we dive into kind of talk about Ruby Sapphire and stuff, again, I just want to reiterate, I'm so happy there are so many different decks. Like, realistically, there are a lot of different decks that we could do deck techs on, right? It's not like, okay, these are the 2 best. Like, we could do Amber Steel, we could do Ruby Sapphire, we could do Emerald Amethyst. Brendan, you were talking about doing Emerald Steel. Like, there's so many decks that I would say, you know, most of you want to show off tier 1 decks, some tier 2 decks that have potential. It's just amazing to see that. I guess I'll pass it over to you guys. What is the next one that we're planning to do? I think we've got the Ruby Amethyst Mirror match one lined up.
It's whatever Moyne his rank one with when I finally get back from the Fab Pro Tour. Like, I mean, because I'll be back from the Pro Tour on like Monday. We'll probably film one next week. And it's just, like I said, if we pick one today, we get to Monday next week, it could be a different deck.
It could be different deck, yeah.
I mean, the hot topic as of recording right now would be this new version of Ember Steel. But we also haven't done the Ruby Sapphire deck tech yet that is being talked about.
Yeah, it's all coming. In regards to Emerald Amethyst, I haven't played that deck that much this expansion.
But I have.
Yeah, you.
Because I think it was actually not great in the meta until Ruby Sapphire got popular, and it's the deck that beats that deck the best. And I think you just want to lean a little bit more into that. So build it very aggressively. So you could even play a few of the Maleficents, the ones that burst for 2, just to have your very aggressive curve more often. Because if against Ruby Sapphire, like you play a curve of a one that, or like Merfolk into Merfolk Maleficent, then that deck just folds over to that basically. And then the other observation I made with the deck, also testing with Spessy, was that the other song. So we already play Friends on the Outside. I wasn't a big fan of Sudden Chill as a song for Ursula, but I think I was a big fan of Sudden Chill.
Strike a Match, that's the one, right?
Yeah, Strike a Good Match I didn't like so much, but making your opponent occasionally discard 2 actually seemed to have a lot of value in combination with the 2-cost Ursula, because the discards actually have more value if your opponent has less cards in hand, because then if they're losing their last cards, that might hurt them a lot more than if they just lose the first card out of their 3-card hand or 4-card hand. So you could even support that with like Hypnotizers, but I'm not sure about that. And what I've been liking is the combination of the 2-cost Ursula, but in conjunction with Lucifer, because often your opponent's not holding songs to play around the 2-cost Ursula. And then, yes, with the Lucifer, they could also just discard an action card that's not a song. But because of this synergy between these 2 cards, sometimes your opponent doesn't have an action when you play the Lucifer. So I think Lucifer actually also has lots of merit that it hasn't been fully explored yet in Emerald Amethyst.
Sure. All right, next comment is from West Wizard. Great podcast. I would like to also see the Ruby Amethyst Mirror matches and thought process. So thank you for answering my question from last time. I now have another question. If the meta, even at local game stores, plays, if it's like a long game meta, so let's say a very controlling meta, why is Moya not hyped around Uber aggro? I mean, obviously this is directed towards Moyen, but it's kind of what Brendan said. If that is what your local metagame is, then sure, bring aggro. If you know that everyone's going to play control, it's a meta call, right? I think aggro decks are gonna be they're gonna be played as a meta call for big tournaments, for stuff like that. I would not climb a ladder or consistently play games with aggro. I would bring it.
I would.
You would?
Yes, I would sooner climb a ladder with an aggro deck than play it in a tournament, I think. Because like the ladder.
Interesting.
Well, the ladder is there's an efficiency rate there. A tournament's a set number of rounds. Ladder, the more rounds you play, like the higher you can climb if you have a win rate over 50%. So like there's a level of efficiency. Yeah, I kind of tangented there. But for me, the reason why I wouldn't be hyped on Uber aggro is because most of the control decks beat Uber aggro. Like, that's just how it is in Set 3.
It's only really Ruby Sapphire that's bad against it. So I think the risk of bringing something like aggro is a lot higher than the risk of bringing Sapphire Steel, Ruby Sapphire, Ruby Amethyst, Ember Steel, because those all have... their weaknesses aren't as bad as the weaknesses of aggro. With aggro against any Steel deck, you're like, very bad against Ruby Amethyst. You can struggle if they draw their Pinocchio. So I would need to expect a lot of, specifically Ruby Sapphire to really be considering aggro.
That's fair. Next comment from Baron Lucas. I watched Moyne at the tournament. It was awesome to hear his thought process during actual high stakes play. Again, shout out to Moyne for streaming on the Podcana channel. That was really, really cool. I am not sure if this is rude to ask, but do you pro players have fun with this game, or is it just the job? Do you look to other games to have fun instead? We enjoy playing this game. If we did not enjoy playing this game, we wouldn't be playing this game.
I think
for the most
the
part,
lines
right?
get blurred sometimes, to be honest. Like, we don't make any money from this podcast, not yet.
No, we don't.
But if we did, then the lines might get a little blurred. Also, like, you do a podcast for 1 to 2 years, and let's say you're reasonably successful, a lot of your identity gets tied up in that podcast, right? You do it with your good friends, and like you just like it's just part of who you are, right? Like you just kind of do this podcast. People either recognize you, they're nice to you, like you build this like culture around what you do. So sometimes it is possible for a game to not be the most fun, and you might continue doing it. So the reason why I point that out is like it is for this game. It is just we just love it, and it's the beginning. It's easy to love Lorcana, right?
Yeah.
Easy, but there might become a time in the future where you don't love it as much, but you keep doing it because there's more to gaming, in my opinion. And this sounds crazy, but there is more to gaming than just having fun in that moment. I think that there's microcosms of success, there's levels of accomplishment, there's community, like there's just lifestyle, like being able to travel, see new places. Like there's so much more that goes into a game rather than am I having fun in this specific moment. That being said, currently with Lorcana, having a lot of fun, but I mean, if I'm looking to just have like raw fun in the moment, I mean, I play a lot of games as well. I play a lot of other games. Like there's some people that can just play one game. That's not me. And that's definitely not Moin. Moin loves himself a new game. Like I know if I find a new game, if I find a new strategy game, I know without a shadow of a doubt, I can message Moin and he's down to play.
Yeah, but I just want to reiterate that it's not a rude question at all. I think it's a totally fair question, but I'm having fun with the game. I hope it didn't, like, on the stream, it didn't look like I wasn't having fun. Because if you start making decent amount of money on a game, then you might continue playing it without having the same enjoyment of it. But right now, none of us are really making money. So right now, enjoyment is a big part of why we do it.
For sure. Yeah, I just want to testify that statement that Brennan said about Moin. I remember when a certain game that no longer exists anymore, DC Dual Force released, this man went on the tabletop simulator before it was even out and like already broke the meta before the game was even in
we had figured
beta.
out the meta. We knew the balancing flaws. The game drops. We immediately had the like top 3 best decks. And they were like, "Oh, what does this card do?"
Yeah, I actually do remember Moin went live and was doing like the beta, and Moin's already saying, "Yeah, this crazy," and everyone in the chat's like, "Wait, what's this game? How do cards work?" Like Moin already knew everything.
I did like an entire day streams where I barely lost a game.
Yeah.
Well, Moin and I spent 3 hours building like a freaking Star Wars Unlimited deck the other a couple
You did like
ago.
a tier list the other
Yeah,
week.
While Brandon was editing, I made a tier list for every single Star Wars card.
and
I just learned the game.
Yeah, we just like, okay, which one of these cards are just above rate? And we just put all those cards into a deck, and it was really good.
Yeah. Yep. All right, next comment is from Life with Luke. I don't want to see blue ramp decks punished for ramping because of the existence of these cards that work better from less ink, unless it's only in like one color. Kind of like how white in MTG has land ramp, but only if an opponent has more lands than you. But I do think there's a lot of design space using cards that either get better or worse depending on certain board state conditions or whatever. Actually, Bell Strange but Special already does this. I want more things like this. So I think this is kind of reiterating what we said about some of our ideas for how to combat. You know, having a certain card on the board. If your opponent has more ink than you, then this card does that.
So sort of first play advantage. I think we were talking about. It's like in reference to first play advantage. It was like card design space. It was like if your opponent has more ink.
Yeah, and I guess that's one thing I kind of overlooked, that it also punishes ramp decks, because even when they go first, their opponent might be able to use these effects. I don't know how much of an issue it is, but it's certainly something I didn't think about.
Yep. Next comment is just a straight up, "Hey Moyen, if you need some cards or a deck, hit me up. I live in your country." So that's nice to have. Next one's from the Banana Button, TLDR. Non-local spikes winning promos at casual shops can frustrate and discourage regulars, hurting the game's casual foundation and ultimately harming the competitive community. This is in relation to what Brennan mentioned last week about how a lot of players will travel to many different local game stores that aren't actually local to them to compete for these promo cards.
And then the stores also potentially artificially making that not possible. And it's talking about the dichotomy between that, where like both sides have a bit of tension, where it's like you have non-local spikes coming in and taking all of your promos. I put quotations for that for audio listeners. And then you also have stores that are like, just artificially limiting how many players can enter so that they can funnel them to locals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the commenter says, my understanding is that CCGs need a strong casual player base to keep the competitive scene thriving. This is very true. This is something that we speak about a lot. One of the ways to incentivize casual players is by offering promos they can win, but if a casual player knows they have a little chance to win a promo because of non-local spikes, then the promo is not an incentive. This is very interesting. They actually talked about this a lot during the stream that was just that just happened today, talking about that they do want to give casual players more incentive and they want to help them aspire to become more competitive and to have this dream that they can actually compete and they can actually win these promo cards. And it is really essential, because if you think about it, us three, right, no matter where we started in card games, we were all like this. We all started off casual players. We had to learn a game. We watched videos. You know what I mean?
Like, maybe not Moyen, let's be real. Like
Moyen was born just to be the best gamer.
Little card game savant over there. It's just ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. But it is definitely essential to card game success. So the commenter continues to say, put yourself in the shoes of a casual player. They earn the local game shop the promos by supporting the shop week in and week out. But if those same promos are taken by people who did nothing to earn the shop those promos, if anything, that's a distance. My God, I'm turning into you, Brendan. That's a disincentive to the casual player. And that's bad news for the competitive community in the long run. We need those casual players to keep the game thriving. Of course, if you truly need the promo to trade/sell, then you got to do what you got to do. But Percy, even if I might be okay spiking a competitive shop, I wouldn't spike a casual shop.
So it's really interesting. I just want to point out that if you ever disagree with somebody and you want to have a conversation, this is how you write it. Like, this is one of the best fucking comments I've ever read in my life. And I completely disagree with it. Like, it is it is well thought out. It is empathetic, and it provides a reasonable position. So I really appreciate this comment. The one thing, I think that there's a little bit of a logical lapse, because when we talk about promos, what makes a promo valuable? Inaccessibility, right? There are casual promos, but nobody wants them because they're too accessible. Like, the reason people want some of these promos is because they're expensive, because they're inaccessible, and usually they want to sell them. Even if they don't, they want them because they're prestigious and they're inaccessible. So there are casual promos. They do exist. And this idea that the casual player is entitled to the competitive promos that are supposed to be won through merit is, in my opinion, a bit of a logical lapse. I do not believe that players, because they support that local shop or they go there every week, that they are entitled to the competitive promotional cards that are given out by the publisher to be won through merit and through competition. And I believe that's where the logical lapse is. And I think it is due, like, there is a level of, like, kind of entitlement to those promos specifically. It's like, there is casual promos. There are promos for showing up. There are promos for attending your local shop, but that's not the ones they want, right? The ones they want and the ones that they feel entitled to are the ones that are supposed to be won through open competition and merit. While that being said, I don't think that this comment is inherently wrong, right? That is also correct. Like, when people come from out of state, they come from out of town, and they are just better or they get lucky and they take and they get the promos, it does feel bad, because you're like, this is my shop. I come here every single week. This shop is partly in business because of me. This tournament is being put on partly because of my patronage. That being said, at the end of the day, I just don't think that they're entitled to the promos. And I don't think that people spiking promos is inherently a problem. And I do think that the logic and the thought process behind these promos are ours because this is our store is not in the spirit of why those promos were even created in the first place. At the end of the day, there are casual promos. Y'all just don't want them. Y'all want the competitive ones, right? Because they sell for money. That's why they sell for money.
Yep. Have to agree. 100%. Next comment is from Patrick McLean. My question for a future podcast would be, what card is one that you want to be good but just isn't? Like a card you wish you could play but really isn't that great. For me, or an example is Steal from the Rich. I love the idea of being behind in lore and questing with 4 or 5 creatures and just flipping the game with a random card like that. A score was 15 to 10. Now it's 10 to 15 to me. I just think it's an awesome play. It's a very interesting question. I don't know. I feel like a card like Steal from the Rich, I feel like cards like that will kind of always be tough to make them great because there's so many conditions attached to the card. You have to have so many creatures. You have to play it at the exact time to kind of get that crazy lord. But like, I'd like to see, what I'd like to see is if cards weren't so good in a previous meta in terms of like, I don't know, this character. Okay, an example I'm going to use is, say there was a certain character that had stats and say it was a vanilla card that had a high amount of lore, right? So let's just say it's a 4/5 or a 4/6 or whatever, and it's actually better to play this card in my deck over cards with powerful effects like Beast or whatever, mainly because the meta is completely 100% filled with Madame Medusas, and this card suddenly becomes really, really good. I like stuff like that because of how the meta develops. Like, I don't kind of think, oh, I wish that this card was just better. I like how through this continuing evolvement of the meta, we get to see cards kind of either reappear or just pop up from the ground up, which is really, really nice. That's kind of just me, or like is like when
I think
you guys
can stretch the logic a bit, right? He's like, what card would you want to be good? We don't have to say like why it's good. You don't have to increase the stats. Just like what card via its design, like the essence of its design, do you wish was just good, right? Like what do you like doing? So I can kind of go first. I kind of wish Bosch is on a roll was good. I like knowing the top 5 cards in my deck. I really do. I like knowing all the cards in my deck. I like drawing my entire deck. I like, Bippity Bobbity Boo was good. That would be great. That would be fantastic. I like flickering creatures, getting multiple into the battlefield triggers. Like that stuff is fun to me.
I find that funny because, and this is why we love you, Brendan, is because these are the cards that everyone gets so high on, and you have to bring them down and be like, no, these are bad cards. Not to say you don't want them to be good cards, but they are bad cards.
They're fun cards.
That's a great answer. Yeah, Moyen?
For me, I would say probably Hydra, the new legendary from the set. That I thought was going to be good, but that's not really the reason I wanted to be good. The reason I wanted to be good is that cards like these make the board states more interesting. They make my trading decisions more intricate, and maybe predicting the future board states more important in how much damage do I want to take on this Hydra to deal how much damage to what. It's not just, okay, I take every value trade I can get and then everything else I quest. I like stuff that makes the board more interesting to figure out. And I think Hydra would do that, and that's why I wish it was a better card.
Awesome answers. All right. Next comment is from DM Dewey. As always, this podcast brings honest opinions about the game and its current state. No hype mode and clickbait crap. I played in the pack tournament over the weekend. It was my first time attempting to compete. This channel and Moyen's thought process on Amethyst Ruby helped me perform very well. Thank you very much. That's great to hear. I'm glad to hear that you guys all enjoyed Moyen streaming from the channel. So we will continue to do that as much as we can for future tournaments. And then the final comment is from the Fallen Monk. Played your list, Ruby Amethyst, having trouble against Emerald Steel. Any advice, cards to change in or out? What do we think, Moyen, Brendan?
I personally don't think the deck's played well. I don't think the deck necessarily struggles with that matchup.
There's some advice.
So maybe it's more.
You gave this advice in the video. Actually, I just remembered it. I'm sure you would have gotten to there eventually, which is mulligan away your songs. Don't get too drunk there, Solid.
Yeah, so basically, if you know you're playing against Emerald, you can mulligan friends on the other side away. And then if you see that they are actually on Emerald, then if you have no B prep in hand, and only inkable songs, and you can ink them in time before the Ursula would come down, then that is an option to take. But so you always have to be aware of the Ursula. And then it's also important to get to drop your Merlin Rabbit before they would ink screw you by discards, or because running out of cards without a Rabbit can be an issue. So I think Rabbit is a key card, and then being aware of Ursula is important. And then also very important is potentially setting up a 3 strength character into the Ursula turn, and then if you can Pinocchio the Ursula so it doesn't even get to sing a song to control the board at all.
Yep. You can also Pinocchio a 1-drop, like Robin Hood sometimes. If it looks like they're all in on shifting a Robin Hood to Whole New World, like sometimes you can set up the Pinocchio kill on that as well. I think that's one of those matchups where more than some others, we're actually rewarded for knowing your opponent's game plan and trying to disrupt it. But the easiest thing you can do is like, I'm playing against Emerald, whether you know it, whatever reason you know it for, you just mulligan away those songs because they play this 1/3 and it does nothing. It's pretty bad for them.
Yep.
And
with that, that's all of them.
Yeah, if you want to get your comment read on next week's pod, just a comment on YouTube. That's it for this week's pod. We'll have anything we talked about Link in the description, so check it out there. The number one thing you can do for us is leave us a review on pod platforms, Apple or Spotify. It helps so much. We're on YouTube, video version, youtube.com/@podcana podcast. Hit the subscribe button there. We're super close to 2K subscribers, which would be a cool achievement for us. Twitter's at BrendanAPG, Moin_HS, and Kawatech_CG. Thank you all so much for listening. We'll see you next week.